Now this is how the cable's made. It's just wound up out of a piece of steel, kind of like a spring, and that's what the housing looks like. Now I've stripped off the plastic on here because I don't have a ferrule on this end. This end goes in where the handle is, the brake handle. So the adjuster, this wound up piece of spring, is going to go inside that adjuster up where the brake handle is. The other end has a ferrule on it. That's what this is right here, this thing. And that's going to go in the wheel adjuster. Of course, on the other side, this one's all set to go in there, but it's going to go on the other side, this one. To cut this, you can use just a big pair of wire cutters, which is what I used on it. But I'm going to touch it to a disc sander down there. I could run a file across it, maybe I'll do that, but you want to get any burrs or sharp edges off of that, off that end there. And then I'll put the cable through it. I made these pieces right here to swing back and forth on a 1032 screw. They swing back and forth so as not to put a strain on the cable. And I don't know if you can see it or not, but there's a couple set screws here. And those are what's going to clamp the wire that goes in there. Now, what I'm going to use to cut the wire, I have a Dremel tool, and you use these little thin, I call them whiz wheels. I don't know how well you can see them if I put my hand behind them. I think maybe I need more light. But I got two of them, a bigger one and a small one. These small ones, you can buy these things at any hobby shop. They have this kind of stuff. But what it's called is a Dremel tool, which is made by a company. Everybody calls them Dremel tools, but there's other companies that make them. You can probably get one made in China. This one's an actual Dremel tool, and they can be a little pricey depending on how good a one you get. This one has a variable speed, so you can speed it up or slow it down. But all you have to do is push this button in, and that locks the spindle so it doesn't turn, and then you put your attachment. I guess I should show you how you do that. You put the attachment, whatever tool you want to use, down inside that collet, and you push this in, and then you can tighten this up. Like I use a wrench like that, but it's probably too big a wrench. I think there's a tool that comes with it, but I'm just snugging it up with that thing. Now that little whiz wheel there, that's going to work to cut that thing, and I'll show you how that's done. The other thing you can use to cut cable is if you have a good pair of side cutters like that. This one isn't too good, it's a little wore out, but probably from cutting wire like that, because this wire is heat treated. It's not just soft wire. They used to use soft wire years ago, but so these need sharpened up. But I can use these usually to cut it, but in this case I'm going to show you how to do it with the whiz wheel. Now what I've got is a wire clamped in a vise, and I've wrapped black electrical tape around there because I want to cut this brass thing off the end of the cable, and I want to show you how to cut the cable. The reason I put the tape around there is kind of to help keep the wires from spreading out or splaying, because I want those wires nice and square on the end so I can put it down inside that hole on this little fitting that I made with the set screws. I'm doing this because I thought it might be easier, a guy could understand it better than all these different ferrules. There's all different kinds of these things on the end of the cables, so you'd have to make a fitting to fit that, and most people wouldn't know how to do that. So and there we go. Now the cable's cut off and the wires aren't too splayed out. A bit of twist on these wires, and you can see which way they braided them. It twists around this way, so when you put the fitting on there, if you twist it a little bit, whoop, that's trouble when you get old. I get dropsy. Now this has to go in there like so, and you can see it's going in there about this deep, but it doesn't need to go all the way that far. As long as it goes past these two set screws is what really counts. But anyways, that's that's the fitting I made. It's supposed to swivel back and forth so it doesn't put a strain on the wire. And this goes on the handle that applies the brakes. I have the cable hooked up on the other end. I'm going to grab this wire and pull on it a little bit, make sure there's no slack in it. And I've checked already, and the wire, it goes in this fitting, down about 2 inches. So I'm going to cut it right by this piece of tape here. And I'm going to use this Dremel tool to do it. I'm using a little bit bigger whiz wheel. The real thin wheels, they break pretty easy. This one can break easy too, so you want to wear glasses or goggles or something when you're using this thing. Otherwise, if it breaks, piece of this stone will come out and hit you in the eye. But I'm going to put a little tension on it. I'm going to cut it off. If I can get this thing in there somehow. That's not very straight, but I guess it'll work. There we go. Now the cable end's off. I guess this is the part that stumps everybody. But I think the set screw idea is going to make it, easier to put together. Now, I'll pull this cable loose, and I'm going to stick it down inside that hole and get it past that set screw. And I think this is the Allen wrench that I need here. So all I'm going to do is tighten that set screw a little bit. I have it way backed off because I want to make sure that wire went in there easy. Now, if you don't have a Dremel tool, you should get one, because boy, you can fix a lot of stuff with one of those. They're pretty valuable thing. It's for delicate work, nothing. If you're building a house, it's not going to help you any, but for a lot of little mechanical things, it's good. And they usually come with an assortment of grinding stones, whiz wheels, different mandrels. I use like a drum sander sometimes. Those are quite handy. And usually a sharpening stone for the grinding wheels, which you just rub that stone against them to shape them the way you want. And it'll bring up new grit too if it gets loaded up. The rotary files, if they get full of aluminum, soak them for just a couple minutes in uric acid, and that'll clean out your file and make it like new. Uric acid, something they use for cleaning concrete. You can get that at most any hardware store. Now, I'm just wanting to make this set screw kind of snug. I don't want to make it really tight, which I could get with this big long handled Allen wrench, but yeah, that's plenty good enough. Now there's adjustment on here which you could adjust a little bit, but you want to make sure there's enough room for that thing to come up and not hit the adjuster here. So if you want to get the brakes even, I usually do that with the adjusters inside the plane. And that's all there is to hooking that one up. But before you hook it up, make sure the handle's down and it's all the way down. One other thing I should show you about these handles, when they're all the way down, they should be setting even like this. And there's a couple set screws underneath here where the handle comes down and hits the top of those set screws to keep them even. So it has a stop on it. It only goes down so far. And the only adjustment you have to worry about is when you pull them up, that they come up about the same amount, so that when you grab it here with your hand, they both come on smooth and evenly on both sides. Because the whole idea is to pull one of them to make it turn one way, or pull the other one to make it go the other way. The cable through on this side, now I was missing the housing, so I had to go get one out of the attic, which was an old front brake for a motorcycle, but it had the right size housing. So I'm going to put this wire down from this end and put it through this adjuster. It has a lock nut on it, so you can tighten that to keep it from moving on you. And I'm going to see if I can't Got to kind of hold the cable on the thing there. There it goes, going down in there. You have to make sure the cables are up in those adjusters. And I'm pushing it through, and it's going to come out at the wheel. At least that's the plan. I don't know, it's hitting up against something here. Let me see. There it goes. I'm going to go put that wire so it goes down inside here a couple inches and tighten that set screw right there. And that's all there'll be to it. A little bit of blue Loctite on the screw. Okay, now I'll put the screw in there, the blue Loctite on there. But I don't want the screw tight, I just want it a little loose so that this can swing back and forth like this. That's why I use the blue Loctite. That'll make it stay right where I put it. I hope you could see that anyway. We'll see if it does. Make sure the end of that set screw is flat on the bottom, so there's nothing here that's gonna cut the wire. Because this set screw, it's gonna go down into that fitting right there. That's what clamps the wire. But it's got to be flat on the bottom. All the fittings, ferrules are down in the adjusters. And then I put a little tension on this wire. You can see where I'm going to cut it here. Way past the set screws in this piece. Way past the set screw. And now I'm ready to cut the wire. A little hard to do with that camera there. Now you have to adjust these cables even. I used this adjuster down here. I had to back this out a little bit to make it about the same tightness as the other one. But there's also an adjuster inside the aircraft as well, near the handle there. A little bit harder to get to those. These are easy to get to. And also I have a stay on here so the cable doesn't rub against the tire. You don't want to have that. You want the cable adjustment even, so when you grab this and pull up to put on the brakes, you don't have to pull them very hard, but that puts them both on at the same time, kind of equally. If you want a corner, you pull one up to stop this wheel, and then you can turn this way much tighter if you got a little bit of drag on this brake, and the same on that one. Guess that explains everything.